but all my other boys are pegged, something that's put in when their balls are taken out, so really the peg's the least of their worries at the time.
This is now my second day on the trail with Sophie. For Sophie, it's probably about day 330 of her solo camel trek across Australia. So those two ropes there, why have you got two?
So one goes to the halter here, or to the camel's neck, and the other one goes to Delilah's nose peg, which is just a little piece of jewelry in the camel's nose, and that sticks in there all the time, and basically it's just another form of control on the camels, just because Delilah probably weighs, I don't know, 600 or 700 kilo, and they've got a huge amount of power in their neck there, and really she could lift me off the ground with the power of her neck, or pull this halter rope away from me.
So you're not leading her by the nose, you've got that line slack.
So I put pressure normally on the halter rope, because obviously by the nose people they don't want to get pulled along by a bit of jewelry in their nose so much, so I just lead her by the halter rope, and then if I need it, I've got the added safety of the nose line there. And that little bit of orange twine right up there on the nose, that's actually a bit of Bricky's string. Yep. And that string's on there. That string is designed to be able to break. Yeah. So if something's to happen and a huge amount of pressure is to be put on the nose line there, that string will break before that bit of jewelry will get ripped out of her nose. So only Delilah needs it up front, because if I can control her, I can control the other four behind her. But all my other boys are pegged, and they have that jewelry in all the time, and it's just kind of handy if I was to ever need to put a nose line on them. Cool. Something that's put in when their balls are taken out, so really the peg's the least of their worries at the time.
I'm just going to film the string down the back here. So after the lead camel there, she's just got a rope around the neck, and then this one just connects to the halter. Now there's obviously, we can't overpower the neck of a camel, but a rope and another camel can. So these guys are pretty much stuck. It's not painful for them. They're just, their entire head has to go where the big strong lead rope goes. And then she's also just got this little ring here that the rope goes through, and that just stops that rope getting caught under the legs of the camel. And that could potentially be a really nasty situation, because they can all get wrapped up and hurt each other. So as I'm walking to the front of the queue there, I'm quite close to them. I'm talking at the moment, so they can tell where I am. But if I wasn't actually talking, I just make a conversation, or I make a little noise, so they go, okay, there's someone there, and they're not surprised, and they don't lash out and kick. Humans can generally only last about 3 days or so without water. There are exceptions, but generally 3 days. Camels, on the other hand, can literally go for months without water if there's a lot of water in the vegetation that they're eating, and if the temperature's not too high. When it heats up though, and there's no water in the vegetation that they're eating, or they're not eating any vegetation, then that period reduces down to 1 to 2 weeks. Camels also have amazing peripheral vision. Their eye sockets actually stick slightly out of their head so they can see behind them. I mounted a GoPro on the saddlebag, and as soon as I put it on there, Delilah realised that there was something on her back, and she turned around to investigate it. And that's one of their survival mechanisms, whether that's a snake or a predatory animal sneaking up behind them. They don't miss a thing. I just changed the GoPro position to the top of the saddlebag, and you can see it constantly just trying to keep an eye on where it is, and its ears turned back to see if there's any threat from this new thing that's on its back. Camels are very capable of defending themselves. If you don't treat them with respect, you can end up in the hurt locker. Over this year or 2 years really, of trekking across Australia, how do you think your psychology's changed, or confidence
Yeah, well, I was telling you yesterday, I never think of myself as a very good decision maker, to be honest. I change my mind all the time. I'd love for other people to make a decision for me sometimes. So it's not something that I ever really considered a strength. And I think one of the beauties of this trip has been the fact that, I've been put in situations where, because I'm the only one on this trip, that I have to make decisions. And I guess in some ways I'm sort of like the trip leader for the 5 camels. So
absolutely.
I have to make decisions on their behalf too.
Yep.
And sometimes I sort of look at them and go, oh, guys, just tell me what you want to do. And I want them to make a decision. But I know, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's got to step up and make the decision. So I think that's been really empowering, I think, for me. And sometimes just to know that, I've been in a situation before where I've just been really down about the trip and how much longer we have to go and how hard it seems. The particular experience I'm thinking about was probably about a month in, and we were all getting used to the routine. The camels were spooking all the time. Everything was hard, even sitting them in a straight line was hard. Packing the gear up took, close to 2 hours. The feed was terrible, and we'd turned up at this camp and it was just miserable. There was no feed for the camels. I was worried about them getting skinnier, and I was just like lay on the tarp basically in tears. And then I sort of had this thought, there's no one that is gonna give me a cuddle and tell me it's all okay and get me up again, or help me out. Like, I have to do that on my own. I'm the only one that can pick myself back up again. And kind of that knowledge was really empowering. And I think the best way that I did that was taking it back to basics, and I found that to be really helpful the whole trip. Kind of, I guess, compartmentalizing. So that day I was like, you know what? No one's injured. None of the camels are injured. I'm not injured. We're all healthy. We're all okay. This might not be a good camp, but tomorrow's a new day, and tomorrow we're going to move forward and we might find something different. And I found that too, I guess, in terms of such a huge distance I'm doing on this trip. And I can't think about crossing Australia. I really have to just think about every day I get up, I go, okay, we just need to get to this water point, which is in 3 days' time, and that's all we need to think about. We don't need to think about getting to Byron Bay. All we need to think about is getting to this one water point. And then further from that is all we need to think about is today's walk. Today we're just going to get up and we're going to walk. And I've just found that really, really helpful, I guess.
This stuff here we think might be nardoo, which used to cover a lot of outback Australia and was a staple food of Aboriginal people. We pulled up some roots. I'll just find some. So there's some tiny little seed pod like things on the roots.
They sort of taste a little bit like peas, but the idea is that you basically collect them up in bulk, and there's some kind of preparation method for them as well. But yeah, it just tastes like a pea out of a pea pod. Yeah, pretty cool. I've always wanted to see this stuff and never seen it.
The area that Sophie and I are walking through at the moment was, and still is, the traditional lands of the Cooma, Bigamble and Kamilaroi Aboriginal people, and we certainly wish to pay our respects to their elders past and present. If you just wanted to cross Australia on foot, it'd be probably easier to do it without camels and just hike, but doing it with camels is just such a rewarding process, and you just, I don't know, there's something about it that you really can't explain until you give it a go. When I finally set off on the expedition, I was underprepared, didn't have enough time, only had 2 weeks off work and had to be back at work at the end of it. It had been a particularly bad year in the desert. There'd been no rain, so there was absolutely no feed, and the camels were undertrained, and it was just very difficult from the beginning. And over 9 days of trying to cross this desert, I had a whole range of things. I had police find me in the middle of the night because I'd been reported as a suspicious character. I had a fairly difficult confrontation with some camel herders in the desert. I had some real problems with feed, and my mother camel Sultana basically refused to continue in the direction that I was going. I had a sandstorm, and I did have a rather worrying encounter with someone who I believed was a significant threat with terrorism, to be honest. So it was a really, really difficult trip, and I will make a film about this trip, and when it's done, I'll put a link to it in the description for this video that I've got here. But yeah, it was a sort of baptism of fire into the world of living and surviving like a Bedouin does, or used to do, in Saudi Arabia. Sophie has gone through some really tough times on this trip, and adventures force you to go through these kinds of experiences. She's had the camels bolt and been dragged along and been pretty much kicked in the head by the camels, and realised that she can't let go of the rope because she'll be left in the desert to die with nothing, and ripped fingernails off and stuff like that. She's learnt some lessons the hard way in relation to the camels bolting. Well, the first time it happened, she wasn't carrying an emergency beacon or any water on her, and the camels ran off ahead, and if she hadn't managed to catch up to the camels, she honestly may have died out in the desert. So they're real risks that she's facing, and she really is isolated. So she's learnt some lessons the hard way, and she's made better decisions from there, and that really is what life and adventure is all about. And it's one of the reasons that she's feeling such a level of accomplishment, which is very, very well deserved.
Jude, come on. Whoosh. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Whoosh. Come on, mate. Let's go today, please. Good boy.
Good boy.
It's pretty hard to beat sitting around the campfire, sunset time, leaning back on a swag or a camel blanket, having a yarn in such beautiful conditions. Even if you do have to go round the camels up and put them to bed.
Once we cross over this fence, it's fenced either side. It's not so nice to camp, and just as we were thinking that, this person rocked up that owns this station, so she's doing what she does all the time, which is going and having a chat and getting logistics sorted out. Lots of gesticulating going on as they discuss which fence you can go through and which ones you can't. So Sophie chatted to Helen, the landowner, and she's all super excited to chat, and she's let us go through her property, which is actually quite beautiful, like just looking really lush and green and nice trees. Because we were facing camping next to a road with the fence each side and maybe trucks going past last night, and now we've got full run of 30,000 acres, river course, dam next to, maybe the camp next to, and just no stress about whether you're imposing on someone's land. So happy days.
Very happy.
So we're gonna camp next to this dam if we can find some good bushes for the camels to eat.
Things out on road. It's nice if you're camping with someone else, you just have that little drop of board.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
So it's late lunchtime, and it's just cute because if you ever need proof that camels are social animals, they all just hang about together. They were all just rolling before and then using each other like pillows. Sophie's working her magic again.
I really love the barley and the stew.
Alright, so a lot of farm dams in Australia have yabbies in them. So we got some salami here and some bricky string, and we're going to try and catch a yabby. The edge of the water's pretty weedy, which isn't ideal because you want to put the line in, give it enough time for a yabby to get on there and slowly pull it back in so the yabby doesn't let go and then grab it. But with the weed there, it tends to pull the yabby off. So I don't want to stand around all day looking for this, waiting for a yabby to go on the line. So I'm just going to make a little trap out of a bottle. Just not rocket science, just cut into it. Connect this in like that. Right, there's the trap finished. So the meat's stuck in there, we can't pull it out that way. There's a rock in there.
And I actually moved the bait right to the back here because you don't want them to be able to get their claws in. You want their whole bum to have to go in here. So I've tied it in there. He's going to go in there. Sophie's got her big camera lens out.
Sophie's taken some amazing photos throughout her journey, and they're well worth checking out on her website and her social media pages. I'll put a link to them in the description.
This is the go.
Thanks so much for watching this episode. The next one is the final one in the series, where I do my final day of trekking with Sophie and then see her off on her way to the far eastern tip of Australia at Byron Bay. This last episode has my favourite campsite of the whole trip. If you're liking these videos, please remember to subscribe.